Welcome to #Analytics, a conversation between two individuals, one that's super passionate and one that's super opinionated, both around the topic of analytics. I'm Ann Jackson, joined by my co-host Luke Stanky. Luke, who do we have with us today?
We've got Sarah Bartlett. She is a consultant at Slalom, and she is the co-leader of the London user group. She is a overall genius, data rock star, and ninja of Tableau. Super excited to have her. Welcome, Sarah.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for inviting me on. I'm honored.
Of course.
And thanks for the great intro, Luke, as well.
So Luke, what I think it's important to say is that Sarah is our first female guest. So we've got a triple threat on today and our first female guest.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense to have you on because I think we've had, behind the scenes before we decided that we were going to tape this, we were all having different conversations with each other about the community. And, you are, I really do mean this, you're connected with everybody across the world. So you definitely are influencing in some way or another everybody in the community with what you're doing. And Iron Viz Europe, still an Iron Viz finalist, and I think you put out probably, in my opinion, the best entry of any of the feeders this year, regardless if it's the global or European. I think people went nuts over your submission, and then we saw a bunch of copycats going forward. So I think that's like the ultimate compliment when you have people trying to mimic your work.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't realize that Viz was gonna blow up like it did. I didn't even spend a great deal of time on it compared to some of the other things that I've done. I just put it out there oh, I've done something at least. And it started to go a bit crazy. And I remember Lorna actually messaged me on WhatsApp. She's like, "You're getting a lot of favorites. I think you're going to be on stage." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Shut up. It's not going to happen." But yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, so we are excited to talk about a number of things. Really, we wanted to talk, we're all ambassadors, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's me asking,
we are all social ambassadors. We are all social ambassadors.
We're all, and therefore we are connected to people on the Twitter and on LinkedIn, and we see what people are doing, and we're constantly consuming this information. So we thought maybe we could chat a little bit about people in the community that we're watching.
And this is just, who are some people that you think have really stood out this year, or people that you think we should be looking at because of the work that they're doing? Does anyone come top of mind?
So I've got quite a long list. There's a lot of people I think that have really excelled this year.
I'm gonna my list. Let's do a little check and see who's we're at the holiday time, so who's on the nice list, who's on the naughty list.
So there's a lot of people that are on my list that are on your list. I'd start off by saying Rosario has just been incredible this year. Her blog is just something else. And she's a breath of fresh air. She's so humble about the whole thing, but she's an absolute genius.
Yeah, she's been doing this for a long time, and I feel like she just didn't get the recognition in the past, and then she's really come to the forefront. I mean, she's been recognized by other people, but definitely has taken that next step up, and you hope to find people. I think one of my biggest complaints or kind of drawbacks is that our community is very, for the most part, for us at least, is very English speaking centric, and Rosario is certainly stepping it up and crossing over from Spanish speaking into English speaking, and she's doing it and getting the recognition from both sides. So it's super cool to see.
Yes, I didn't know she couldn't speak fluent English. I assumed that she could. So when we were preparing the tug battle at TC, I reached out to her to be one of the contestants, like you guys were, and she was like, "No, I can't speak English." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I totally thought you could because of the blog, but yeah. But totally.
I mean, the fact that she translates her entire blog post to English just so that it can reach another audience is, just shows how much she cares about the community.
Yeah, well, I think we're doing good things there when it comes to sort of the you know, I'll say Latin American community, right? We have the Latin American Fringe Festival. You know, we've got people that are now starting to connect, and I'm seeing, at least from my perspective, much more Spanish crossover than I had in the past. So I hope that that's a sign of things to come. But again, getting back to the point, I'm totally in alignment with you, Sarah. I think Rosario is probably the most technically strong person that there is, literally from, and I think that's probably one of the beauties about knowing that her blog posts are translated from Spanish to English, that it's still so clear and articulate, demonstrates how well she can abstract and distill down some of these more, you know, difficult concepts from a technical perspective. Okay, so check. She's on Luke's list.
I mean,
Who else?
that's like, I mean, it was a no. So let's get the no-brainers out.
Well, she's obviously a favorite because she participates in Workout Wednesday, right? I think she's one of the only people in the world that's done more than I have for Workout Wednesday. So of course, you know, there's a little bit of bias from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Another person, I think he's on your list as well, Luke, is Jacob Olsufka.
Oh man, yes,
So,
for sure.
I don't think there's anyone else where I favorite every single one of their vises that they publish. Like everything that Jacob does is incredible. And I mean, most of it I don't even understand. It's like baseball stuff. Like when he presented at London Tug last year, he was trying to present his triple play. Is it triple play?
Yeah.
Viz that he did with Rhodey, and he lost the audience, but everyone was still wowed by the viz.
I think sorry to interrupt, but I just feel like it's for him. No one in the community is doing stuff that is translating from Tableau into the broader data viz community better than he is. I'm back to back information is beautiful short lists, and he does put out some really cool stuff. Like he put out recently the color palettes that are super easy to use.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's someone, you know, he's been an Iron Viz contestant as well. So maybe there's a thread there that Iron Viz breeds excellence. Who knows? But I think you guys are right. Like what's really interesting about his color palette visualization, although it's like popular now, I think it was Viz of the Day like yesterday or something. If you look back at his work, and he even said it, he's like, I've been using these color palettes for a very long time. So to me, that just demonstrates someone who is a student of the craft of visualization, right? And it's really nice to see someone like that try to push some of that into the very Tableau-centric world that we live in on Twitter.
He's really thinking about users, and I think that can't be said for everybody in the way that and I mean the sense of like interactivity. He's building thoughtful interactivity, not just making something interactive for the sake of making it interactive. You're like, oh, that like there's some features where I had to go in and see what he was doing, and it's, you know, I don't want to say that I know the tool in and out all the way, but there's like when there's some design features that I see, and I'm like, oh, how is specific to design? You almost like never run into a thing where you're like, how is he doing this design, or she is doing this design? And he's consistently, he does that where you're just like, oh, I want to replicate that one thing that he's doing.
Yeah, he did a fantastic presentation at London Tug. So you'll see on his profile, he's got like a more of a business-like dashboard. So he did that for us to present, and he talked through it, and there was loads of things in there around like interactivity, but thoughtful interactivity, like you say. And it's just a beautiful dashboard. I know it's just a business dashboard, but it's amazing.
I mean, that's 95% of what all of us are doing, are building those business dashboards. Occasionally I'll send Anne a screenshot like via my phone and be like, hey, check out what I'm building. Like I don't just do crazy stuff all the time.
No. Yeah, and most of us don't.
Yeah, I like, maybe I'm in the minority, but maybe not. I like building business dashboards better than like public dashboards most of the time, just because I know that they're like functional, they're going to get used. Like it's a really cool, you're actually demonstrating real data. Like I get really enthusiastic and energetic about that, especially because maybe it's because as well, like people are like, I can actually use this for something. I figured something out. Like I never saw this before. I wish we could somehow do that more in the public facing world, but I get a lot of my enthusiasm from just the basic bar charts that I build every day.
Well, I mean, like Chris Love and Everyday Dashboards, that kind of is around that thing where he's encouraging people to share real life dashboards, you know, rather than the crazy stuff you see on Tableau Public, which is great because there's a whole source of inspiration there. And what you do with Workout Wednesday and those type of dashboards are all things you can take away and apply at work. So. I love that kind of stuff.
For me, it's all about how do we get a business dashboard is how do you get creative with bar charts? And I mean, that's the trick of it, right? I want to throw in somebody out there that I think is doing amazing work, and she is.
It's Sarah, right? Like you're talking about.
She is super humble about what she's been doing, and I just want your opinions. What do you think about that? And that's Sarah Bartlett.
God.
What do you think about her work this year?
So let me give you, from my perspective, what I've seen from you, Sarah, right? So what's kind of interesting is Sarah and I have known each other for, I want to say it's been like 3 years. Like there was a point in my life where I remember being in like a corporate cubicle and like nobody, I felt like very unnoticed, right? Which is fine, right? But Sarah and I knew each other at that point, and we had a lot of common thread because we were both running user groups. There's this whole culture of, if you run a user group, it can be somewhat difficult, I think, to penetrate and bring that to where a lot of the action and the conversation is happening on Twitter. At least I think I saw that. I don't know about you, Sarah, but I saw that at least probably 2 years ago. I think it's changing as we get more comfortable with other like forms of video and other mediums. But I know Sarah to be one of the most consistent people in the community. She's someone who has shown up, literally, Sarah, you've shown up like every day for the past 3 years from my perspective. There's not a moment where I feel like you've ghosted on anything, like you've not taken a vacation. I think about like that Vizzy award. I don't even know if they still have it, but like, did you win it? The one that's like who runs on coffee and caffeine?
Hang on a second. Here you go.
Yeah, that is exactly who you embody. And what's so interesting about Sarah in particular is you keep going and you keep fighting, which means that you have such a deep fire inside of you that it's just like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. And this year, like, I don't think you've done anything different. I think if nothing else, the Twitter algorithm has changed in your favor or something, right? Like some tipping point happened, because now what's really happened where you've positioned yourself and what you're becoming is exactly what Luke said. You are a thought leader. You are a leader, an instigator, an initiative builder in the Tableau community. So, and I also think that is backed up by exactly what Luke said, which is you are very humble and very open to not only giving honest feedback to people and calling people out privately where they may need to be called out, but really helping to push forward and change the way things are and ask people for their opinions along the way. So I'm in alignment, Luke.
Yeah, I just like, since we have this person with us today, I mean, I'd be very curious, like, where do you see yourself spending time in 2019? Because obviously we're all evolving and we see where Sarah's at now. Where are you going to be next year? Where are you emphasizing your time?
I don't know. So where do I start? I probably want to take a step back from Twitter a little bit. I probably use it a little bit too much. So you may think I'm being active, but I'm not being active in this all the time in the sense of building Tableau dashboards. It may just be engaging in conversation, encouraging other people. I do a lot of that, like Tableau FF, that kind of thing. I really want to try like focus on my like more technical skills so that I can build a pretty dashboard if you like, but it's more, I'd like to focus more on the technical stuff behind it. So it'll be a focus on Workout Wednesday for one, and also a focus on getting more people involved in the community. It's in the sense like it's something I've announced today, but
I'm secretly trying to set that up.
He's teeing it up for you to talk about it.
But it's like I just see there's a lot of people up and coming, and you can see they're struggling or they don't really know kind of what they should be doing, or so I really want to try and encourage more people to get involved, particularly people like women or people of color, or the underrepresented groups, because I still think there's a bias in this community.
Hold on, I'm going to take a quick break and you guys can just chat for a little bit. And I'm joking.
Oh, is this because we're talking about female things and you're getting uncomfortable?
Well, not necessarily female.
I don't think it's at all. I'm all about engaging in that, but there's definitely needs to be a space for that. There is no doubt. And I don't say that with lip service. I think you can see, so I've already, like, in preparation for this conversation, put out my Future Zen list. And Future Zen to me isn't like these are people for next year necessarily, but these are people for the very like immediate 5-year future. And I'm very like, we do not represent groups well enough. And that if you look at the current makeup, and I know that Tableau is trying to be very thoughtful about it, but that current makeup is very centric in a couple of places, and it lacks geographical let's just call it like the baseline should be geographical representation. We have great data from our Workout Wednesday to show where people are located in doing Tableau, and we just need that sort of equal representation from places where there are really great people and they're probably not being surfaced, because again, Tableau is based in America and it's run by English speaking people, so you don't necessarily see everything that from other countries. And I've like tried to do my best in the last year of connecting with people where something might pop up and it's like I got to connect. I don't care like if it's someone in Chile and I can't speak the language, or it's Polish, whatever it is. Like we just need to do a better job of connecting, and don't like the default shouldn't be that they need to learn English to be in the community. It should be that we should be willing to do what they're doing, which is go and figure out how to cross communicate and see and learn what they're doing. Because I see a lot of dashboards or just Tableau public represented stuff that isn't English, and you just look at the design and you're like, oh, this is brilliant design. Like that's stuff that needs to be able to just translate, and it does.
Yeah, I think we saw some of that with some of the feeders this year, like from Japan. There was some like really beautifully designed stuff in Japanese. So I mean, I don't know what it said, but it looked amazing. And I see a lot of people from Japan actually getting more involved in the community. They've got their user group there, and they just seem to be a little bit more active than this time last year, for instance.
Yeah,
and then you've got the like the Delhi Tug as well. They seem to be quite vocal. They post about what they've been doing and things like that.
I get the sense that 2019 is going to be the year of globalization. I can see it happening, obviously, with the things that we're talking about that are very Tableau-centric, with user groups, with Iron Viz, with people in different languages. I mean, even if you look, it's very appropriate to when we're filming this, because, one of the things it says on the XenForm nomination is we want to represent our global community well, the needs of our global customers. But I also think you're seeing that globalization happen not only with something that's very Tableau-centric, but also just the visualization community. I think you're starting to see this convergence of people that were more directly in journalism or doing maybe D3, or maybe they were in academia, and you're starting to see this combination of voices come together around something much more specific and centered around just a craft of information design, information presentation, data storytelling. So I hope that 2019 is the year of globalization.
Yeah, I think Tapestry did a really great job of sort of catalyzing some of that. So the Tapestry Conference is a conference, for those who don't know, that is really focused on data visualization and bringing people from different communities in data viz together. And not just anybody, the top thought leaders. And I think the reason we're starting to see this convergence is because thought leaders are starting to mature and think broader beyond, just the D3 capability or the journalism capability, or like infographic design capability and Tableau capability. It's everybody's trying to figure out how can we start meshing everybody together and grow as a whole, because every piece has different parts that can help bring it together. No doubt. I mean, yeah.
Which is great, and that's exactly what we need to be. I think in the past we may have been a little too consumed in our own little Tableau bubble, and a bit not so aware of what was going on outside of that. But I think this year we've seen more of a shift, and a more of appreciation of those people that work in different fields.
I would love to see our community start, like, great design in Tableau should be great design in other data viz areas, and having that consistency, because I think sometimes I feel like there's a little mismatch in terms of that consistency.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I will say, having come from Tapestry, one of the things that I find myself very guilty of, which particularly in journalism, that they don't suffer from, is this idea of this tool or this viz has to do so many things. Like they're very comfortable with like, this does one thing really well. This is the most narrowly focused thing to demonstrate what it is that we're talking about, right? There was a really great talk from someone, I think she was from the Washington Post, but she was talking about visualizing climate change. And she's like, we made these decisions with a very simple line chart. We did this one thing, and then we did this one map. I think too often, at least in the Tableau community, sometimes we can be focused on doing like lots of really cool things, or it has to be open and flexible because we're consumed by that in our day jobs to some degree. You know, everyone wants to filter everything in a dashboard that does, 55 different things. Yeah. So there's an opportunity to learn from that perspective as well. And then I'd even say what was also interesting from Tapestry is that there are academics that literally like do research on what works well and what doesn't work well. Mm-hmm. The color palettes that Jacob is now kind of helping fold into our Tableau Twitterverse are things that like people have done like real research science to figure out that cognitively this is a more accurate way to represent data. And those are the kinds of things that I need to help me grow in my career. And those are the kinds of things that are going to make, people around us smarter.
Yeah.
I think, yes, I would love to see that for sure. As a former, I went through academia all the way. So everything, like, where's the research to support the decision on what we should be doing?
In what subject, Luke, may I ask?
It's like so basically applied stats is the best way to
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like, I don't know, chemistry or something.
No, I know a lot about how people interact with each other and then looking at the underlying data.
Okay.
So next year, Sarah, can you tell us a little, like there's the one thing, like what else is on I know we just like went on a giant digression, but what else is on, what are you thinking about going into next year?
Honestly, I don't set resolutions. I don't believe in resolutions or anything.
Me neither.
No, because they're just there to fail. It's pointless. Yeah. So I'll pick a goal. Like I listened to the last episode you did.
Become best friends.
Yeah, it really annoys me because you'll see someone like fail their resolution on like January the 3rd or something.
A resolution, like just calling it a resolution, you might as well just resolve to failure is the way that I look at it. And if like I just ask the question because it's natural, like even in the Tableau cycle of things, like we've just wound down from Tableau conference, and then you usually get like a month or two of trailing ideas that you're building off of, and then it's like, oh, we're hitting the ground running with the next cycle of Tableau things. It's like 2019 season is right around the corner.
But I actually do have something really cool planned for 2019. Anne knows about it. She's probably waiting for me to mention it. So I don't know if you know, Luke, but I reached out to Anne around the time of Tapestry to see if she'd be interested in doing a Dear Data project with me. So in the same form that like Stephanie and Georgia did, we're going to send postcards to each other every week.
I'm very curious to see what comes of this.
But Anne is insistent she can't draw, so it could be interesting.
It's so funny. Like I hate people that say they can't draw because like anybody can draw, right? Like anybody can sing. Like I can't draw well, right? It's not a craft that I practice. But I love, I know, and Sarah and I have talked about it, I think it's going to stretch both of us because there's an amount of consistency that has to go into it, an amount of time and care and thoughtfulness. And I think it's going to be a really good growth opportunity. And I'm really excited to be doing that with Sarah, to have a partner in this. I think it's going to be, I'm scared shitless, but I am so excited to do it. I'm like, literally, I have my markers. I've been practicing. Like I have the book.
I have the book. I have it here.
I bought my postcards. I'm all in there.
Yeah, me too. I've stolen my daughter's pens. I'm sorted. But no, it's quite scary. And so Luke, we were like, well, what are we going to do? So I went through the Dear Data book, the original, and put all the subjects in the Google Doc. So week 1 is this. I think week 1 is tracking how many times we check the time, like check your watch, check your phone, and things like that. So we were looking at the list of subjects. We're like, right, this is going to be interesting. And I haven't worked out yet, like where TC will fall or what will happen on like that week, because that would just be crazy. But
number of sessions that Anne decides to do.
I was thinking we have to at least trade postcards at TC, like make it a moment.
by hand, yeah. But it's going to be really exciting. I think a lot of things will spin off that, and I can see more Tableau visits coming and more blog posts coming on the back of that as well. So that it kind of opens up a whole another opportunity of different things that we can do.
When you say you don't know what you're doing for 2019, what you mean is that you have a full schedule for 2019.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How humble to be like, well, I don't have anything going on. Well,
that's just actually, a tiny thing, you know.
I'm just going to, and I really appreciate that you are doing this, and that more people need to do stuff that is what I like to call slow viz, which is you collect your own information and you do something that's far more customizable. I feel like there's like that missing piece, that like the Tableau, Twitter hype cycle of content is constantly churning. And I think when you, and maybe this is just like the maturity of all of us, but you get to a point where you're like, like, do I really need to do something every week? Yeah. Not really. Maybe I'll just put out some really good stuff to yours. Like everybody's putting out good stuff, but just like that level, it just is more like maybe I can slow it down and do like that one extra thing to make it great. So
yeah. So no, it'll be interesting. And this isn't a new thing. Like bear that in mind. Like so, like Andy and Jeff Schaefer did this a couple of years ago.
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, but I think the new book, Observe, Collect, Draw, has got people like revved up again, and everyone kind of wants to draw out their data and things about their lives and stuff like that. So there's been this whole renewed interest, and obviously Georgia was at TC and gave a talk there. So there's been a lot of kind of interest in this area. So I thought, hey, why not try it? Yeah, I went to a talk by Stephanie Wozniak.
She's in London.
Yeah, she lives in London. She's American, but she lives in London.
Yep, I got to go to their sessions. I went to a training session. They were both in Minneapolis. They actually met in Minneapolis.
Yeah, they were at a conference. They met once. They didn't know each other. Then they started this project. So she went through all of that. But she was like, anyone that embarks on this project is mad. Like, I don't recommend it. So hey, why not try it?
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fitting for the two of you who are everywhere all the time to decide to be even more everywhere all the time and track things.
It was Anne's Viz actually. One of your IronViz feeder that you did on September, and your whole month like mapped out that was what made me think, oh, do you know what, Anne might be up for this.
And you're absolutely right. I think I've always had like I think within the first week, like I think it might be my first visualization on Tableau Public is like something about myself. It's a quantified self-visualization. So I always find that data to be like the most interesting to learn from. I also like it because it's my data and people can't tell me I'm wrong because it's my data. So I can be very protective of it. Look at Luke's face like, oh,
I do have a question about your data from your IronViz entry. I was like going through it and I'm not sure that all the data is correct unless you ate ice cream for every single one of your meals.
I almost didn't choose September because it was such a weird thing. Like I had a conversation with Emily Kund and I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. I want it to be about my personal life. But if you look at what I'm eating every day, people are going to be able to judge this and say, hey, you're fucking weird, right? And I'm like, but it's true, right? And so actually I decided, you know what? That's the part that people are going to stick to and like about it, or they're going to be like, what is this?
But I feel like
that's really true.
I feel like you would have won if you would have highlighted, yes, I did eat ice cream every day.
I don't like to shout like it. You know, I put it in like, it's kind of funny because some of the feedback I got was like, you had this little informational in the upper right and it was very small and hard to get to. And it kind of explained why you did this project. You should have like vocalized that further. And I'm like, that's really not my style. Like, I don't really want to gain any sort of visibility on something that's like a shiny trick or something that is distinctive in that regard. And that's not what it was about for me. Like for me, that's probably my favorite thing that I built this year because it was like a pure expression of like what I look like in Tableau, right? Which is weird to say, but like what it looks like and how small everything was and people and how they responded to it. but I'm not someone that's ever going to be like, yeah, I'm like, look how cool I am. I eat ice cream every day, because in my mind, that's a negative, not a positive. And
So
I had ice cream for breakfast this morning.
You're telling us you don't eat ice cream for breakfast anymore?
I do. So it's funny because someone asked me this. So I visited and I stopped eating ice cream. And then after I visited, I was like, you know what? Actually, this was good for me. Like, one of the things that I found out is that I think I was like happier whenever I actually had it for breakfast. And I've told this to people. I think I put it on Twitter. Like, I track my calories. Obviously, that's how I got the data. And it gave me these insights. It's like, hey, the days that you eat ice cream for breakfast are days that you're more likely to stay on track. If I'm more likely to stay on track and I have this one thing in my favor, why not? And I'll be like, this is not Ben & Jerry's like super sugary ice cream. This is like mostly high protein, low sugar. Someone's called them a glorified protein shake, but it still is, cold ice cream for breakfast is something that makes me happy. It's slow. It's fun to eat in the morning. It's cold. It's nice, cleansing to the palate.
Yeah.
Who would have known this conversation was going to go into dietary?
It's fresh in my mind because we I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but we did the London Tug annual quiz last year, and the first round was who visited. So I was responsible for that round, so we all take it in turns. And I had to pick 10 Tableau public visualizations and a list of authors, and they had to match the author to the viz. And that was one of the vizzes I used. And you'll be pleased to hear that people knew it was yours. I think for the bulk of the people anyway. Some people in there aren't on Tableau public, so like no idea. But it was on there, so I was looking at it and looking at the ice cream. just the other day.
Now I'm known for more than just cats, right? It's cats and ice cream now. I will take it all day long.
Super. That's just crazy. Okay, back to our list though, right? We are only like 3 in. And I actually think
we're 3. You're number 3.
Okay,
I think what we should do is we should say, all right, we can only name, like, I'm going to have a couple that I want to add in, but you can only name 3 more people. And then that's it. And I'm very curious, like, who, because I mean, we've seen our lists are very long and we could spend all day talking about 25 people, but who are those people that are, that we should be watching?
So let's go with Lorna Eden, who we all know very well.
Interesting pick. What's up with Lorna?
So Lorna, I think Lorna underestimates her own capability. Like, Lorna is awesome. And obviously she's getting involved with Workout Wednesday next year. Myself and Lorna have done a lot of stuff this year. She's like the tip battle queen, along with Anne, obviously. But she's definitely one to watch. Definitely.
Yeah, I think she's we recognized her talents. Obviously Anne and Lorna go way back, and Lorna and I just met a couple months ago, other than the whatever Twitter is. And I was just really impressed with her knowledge of the tool. And I think in terms of someone who she's across the pond, and
she's up north.
So I just was I think in the sense of like, she's one of those people you have to pay attention to because she knows the tool so well, and it's just a matter of her having space to showcase her talents a little bit more.
I've said this to Lorna, and I've probably said this to all of you. Like, Lorna I think is like the fastest visor that I've ever seen. Like, she really gives you a run for the money with everything that she does. She's not so quietly competitive, but she has a deep competitive streak in her. I mean, you can go back to, like, the people that I always like to think about are people that are very hard workers. Maybe that's kind of biased because they're kind of similar minded to me, but she's someone who's worked really hard. She's been consistently contributing. She has done more Iron Viz feeders than I have done, right? And every conversation I have with her around it is just about the fight in her. And that's what I like is the fight and the persistence. And I also, one of the things I love about Lorna, so if you think about her journey, like, she was in the 2nd cohort at the data school. I have no idea what number they're on now, but she was in the 2nd round. See, they're on 12.
But they're doing dual sessions now. So there'll be 2 running at the same time because they've got Carl as well. So.
They have the 2 coaches. So she's been around for a long time. And the best thing about Lorna to some degree is she's willing to take on Andy Kriebel. She has got she is like the number one person who will take on someone very prominent in the community that we all, you know, adore, right? We put him up on a pedestal. He does so much stuff. You can't even compete with him when you think about, you know, metrics on like number of Tableau folks, visualization, how many people he follow, you know, how many people follow him, all those things. But Lorna is not afraid. She is fearless in the face of making sure that, you know, Andy's not too high up there on whatever it is. And I think that's really important. So I think she deserves a lot of credit and respect for being that person as well. That it strikes me as someone who's very strong-minded and strong-willed.
Yeah, totally. She actually, we had at London Tug in the summer, we did a little party, and we had a Tableau speed challenge. You had to build a dashboard. We set out the requirements of what this dashboard needs to look like, and it was really simple. But Lorna actually beat Andy at this challenge, and he was not having it. He was not happy. He was determined to beat her time, and it didn't happen. So yeah, Lorna was loving that.
I just like, I've always wanted in the community, just for the fun of it, is like, because we have Iron Viz, and that's sort of like the pinnacle event, but there's other, and the criteria for that are very fixed. And I've always been like, we should have like other events in the community that is almost like the Tableau Viz Olympics, where you have like speed building a dashboard, you have best design, you have most technical, so you give like some super technical like workout Wednesday judo kind of thing, and you say, all right, go build this, and like just doing weird stuff like that to celebrate the different skills that are required of the tool. Just like it's just like a super interesting thing that I've thought about a few times.
Yeah, I think that's been mentioned before, like since TC, I think that's come up, that there should be this like sidetrack where we do all this crazy stuff. And
I'm really bad at following social media right now.
But it would be really fun, because Iron Viz is Iron Viz, you know, and it's very fixed. But something like that would be cool. Like expanding upon the user group that we the battle that we did at TC. You know, taking that to the next level would be cool.
People love competitions. That's what I've found out.
People are very competitive.
You know, whether it's just participating or winning, you know, there's the whole spectrum, but people get excited about all of it because it's still about skill building and showcase, right?
Yeah, and those things are fun to watch as well. So even if you're not taking part, you know.
Yeah.
Sign Lorna up now. just put her name down.
No. Can we do like two more individuals?
Yeah. So okay, Klaus. I'm not going to try and present his surname, but you know who I mean. There's only one Klaus.
Schulze?
Right? Yeah. So Iron Viz Europe champion Klaus.
Dr. Klaus.
Dr.
You know,
Klaus.
it was like very interesting.
Professor Dr. Klaus.
Yeah, Professor Dr. Klaus Schulze. Yeah. It's a very interesting ad, because I remember like I was just like messaging with Anne about, hey, who am I forgetting? And neither of us had originally brought him up, but then I again, just searching the internet, looked at his blog, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh man, he really has done a lot this year, and we can't forget about everything that he's doing. And he's bringing innovative approaches to the tool, and he's blogging about it, and he's involved in all parts of the community. So it's like, if you're checking the boxes of what could make a future Zen master, I think he's definitely hitting on a lot of them right now.
Yeah, and he's not a native English speaker. He's super humble as well. Like he just, you know, takes it in his stride.
As all good professor doctors do.
I mean, he's an author. Did you? He's authored a couple of books. Did you know that?
Of course not.
I knew that. Yeah, and it's funny because I sat with him again. So it all goes back to Iron Viz, but that's just where I'm at. Like I sat with him at Iron Viz, and you know, it was funny because we were both interviewed, and so we were like talking about like what our answers were going to be, and just like experiences and what we thought about each Viz as it was coming up. And I agree, like he is a professor of the craft, right? I love those types of people. So I think and I agree. Like Sarah, you were were we sitting next to each other at Makeover Monday, and you guys built your Makeover Monday live together? Yeah, exactly. Like
we paired up with him. So he kind of just he told me what to do. I did it. It was all his idea. But I mean, he's incredible. So he was someone I've been communicating with a lot before any of the IronViz stuff happened. But remember, he was brand new. So when we did IronViz, he'd been using Tableau less than a year. So it's only maybe like 18 months now. But I was following him through the community through Makeover Monday. We'd communicate a lot. We'd give each other feedback and just talk offline. And then when the announcement came out for IronViz, he immediately set up a chat group with me and Daniel. And I know Daniel really well. Daniel used to work for me at a previous company. So we know each other. And it was really nice. And it was a really nice kind of like relationship between the three of us in the lead up to the competition. So yeah. I think he's
yes,
one to watch.
We definitely are. Like I said, our list has a lot of similar individuals on it.
And then I think we're focusing a lot on people that do a lot of stuff on Tableau Public, or do Workout Wednesdays, what about people that are more technical, so more on the server side, for instance?
Oh, I mean,
anyone?
There is definitely one on my list that is. I think it's Merlin. I'm gonna butcher his last name, dude. I mean, you might not know who he is, but he's if I'm like, have you seen the thing where you can play Mario in Tableau?
It's amazing. I met him. So I was at a partner event in London earlier this year, and he was there with Infotopics and his colleague. And so I knew of the Mario thing, but I didn't know it was built by him, and he presented that there. He's really, really talented.
He knows what he's doing, and I think if you're taught the Tableau Zen Master title is for all things Tableau, and again, we often focus just on desktop, and there's now a prep tool, there's extensions, and there's other APIs that are available, and those individuals also need to be recognized, and because they're when you start using extensions, that's when you get your mind blown and you're like, oh, and I think we've seen it twice because they also won the hackathon, and I'm forgetting what they also did another game in.
He won something at TC, right? The Netflix hackathon.
If I'm talking about who should be immediately next year, he's like 1 or 2 on the top of my list, just because it's like you've got to recognize that talent when it's coming in the community, and especially
with extensions becoming more and more important. It's essential we have people like that.
Great. So we all agree on our list. I just want to there's one more person that I really want to bring up who's also very humble, and she's doing great work, and her nonprofit is kind of expanding through the US, and that's Chantilly. I always forget if the last name is with a soft J or hard J, so I'll just say Jagernoff.
She's on my list too.
She's just I think that the hardest thing is our criteria are, they're sharing stuff back with the community, and you assume that it has to be a blog. But how about let's go into colleges and actually work with those colleges as a nonprofit to provide those skills to people. And I just know from talking with her at TC is that, in her presentation at TC, is that this program, Millennials in Data, you're thinking, is it small? Yeah, it's kicked off this year, but the demand for it is so high already. And she's helping grow the community in ways that haven't been approached before.
You've seen the stats, sorry to cut you off, but the standard of some of the stuff that those students are doing is really high as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that needs to be commended for an innovative approach that's beyond just having a blog. Oh, how about you actually work with a dozen people to make them great at Tableau? And I mean, it's very much in line with the approach that they're using in the standard is with the data school. And you see who has blossomed out of the data school. And I would expect the same sort of quality going forward of the individuals going through Millennials in Data.
Yeah. And I don't see anyone else doing anything quite like that. So there's a lot of people that are writing academic programs or working at universities and doing stuff there, but this is all non-profit. This is separate. She's doing this in her own time, right? And partnering with universities, such a smart idea.
Just go right to them and say, hey, you have a skills gap. Like, they're going to know a lot of stuff, but here's the tools and technologies that they need to know. So how do we make this work for everybody?
Yeah. And on top of that, she's super talented. Like, everything she does is incredible.
Genius,
Yeah?
if you
Yeah.
ask me. Like, I've seen the work.
Yeah, she's really consistent. Like, and she's been like that for a couple of years, you know?
Yeah, I think that the hopefully the people, whoever select, if we're talking about those 2-3 people at the top, and to me, she like surfaces right up there, and hopefully she's recognized for that, for sure. I mean, no, again, I hate the idea of just having a blog, because the blog is just so limited. But I feel like that's a criteria sometimes. It's like, oh, you have to have a blog and you have to have posts.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough. I mean, you know, you're talking very specific about the Zen Master Program, but a lot of that is from a marketing perspective. It's visibility, it's reach, it's engagement, it's sharing in that regard. And when you think about marketing metrics, a lot of those are social media driven. They are web traffic digitally driven. So it's not something that you can neglect, but it's finding alternative ways to kind of fold that into that. I think, Luke, I will selfishly say, I think that what we're doing here is kind of a good alternative way to help leverage social media and marketing tactics to really increase things. Maybe that's
so if you're talking about how I've connected to the community this year, the top things that I've done is I put together a Google spreadsheet, a Google PowerPoint or whatever it is, and shared that in the community. And then apparently I had like a really good, just a tweet. And that's like another point of reference.
One tweet.
Yeah. Because I guess I just don't like, it's weird to me. I try to use my personal blog when I can, but it's just like, there's so many other ways for spreading content. Of course, it feels comfortable to just use and have that as a point of reference for people to go to a blog post. But I try to be, I do it intentionally. Like, I want to have other means for getting that information out there. So.
Yeah. Do you not find though, when you do a viz or something, that let's take one of your ironviz feeders, like the one with the clouds, you know, that's something like that. You're going to get a load of questions. People are going to say, how did you do this? Like, how did you do that particular thing? It's easier, before you get any of those questions, just to put a blog out there that covers everything. And then when you get those questions, you can point people to the blog, you know.
I will spend more time writing that post than I will doing the work. And I understand that is part of the deal, but you know, that's really, the math is great, but it's, yes.
But it's also nice to have that for you to reference back, in case, you know, because you might forget what you did. I mean, for me, I forget what I did on vizzes, and it's quite nice to have that blog post that you can always refer back to.
I think I have the curse of staying really organized with everything on my computer or on my drive, so that it's just like, oh, I need that. I have everything. I'm always documenting everything that I do. I get in that routine and habit of, oh, this is what the best practice should be. You should always document your code. You should always have something to follow up with. And that's what I do. And then it's all embedded in the tool. And it's like, that's what I'm guilty of. And then, like, how do I share all of that? That's the hard part.
But I just find that I think the blog helps with that kind of thing, you know.
I agree. I'm also recognizing my shortcomings of not writing up what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's smart, Sarah, especially when you talk about, like, you know, a specific viz that you build. Anytime that you can share that process. Like, one of the things I haven't done it so much this year, but last year I spent a lot of time writing blog posts about, like, why I did what I did for Makeover Monday or Work at Wednesday, what my little learnings were. And that does help to to crystallize it in your mind. It's kind of funny. One of the, you know, you talk about, like, forgetting things. One of the most interesting things that happened to me this year is someone came up to me and was like, I need to meet you because you are the only person on the internet that's ever written a good blog post about Tableau server on Azure. I think that you are the Tableau server on Azure queen. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I know nothing, you know, this was a pet project on a Friday afternoon because I had nothing else to do, but I blogged it, right? And so that helps extend in perpetuity, and also helps me recognize, like, hey, maybe I do, you know, kind of know what I'm doing. But, you know, especially if it's something like that, I think you can't negate that topic. I'll say, kind of selfishly, like I've been doing more server stuff this year, and there's like not a lot of good Tableau server on Linux documentation out there. So I have this grand plan of, I would really like for someone, myself, to be a voice that's like, hey, here's how you would deploy it on AWS. Here's the differences, that kind of thing. So there's value in it there, Luke. I mean, even if you're just meta blogging about like, hey, I'm so cool because I document all my code, so I don't need to do any of this stuff. You can still blog about that.
Yeah. And you're starting to sound like Paul Banoub, but he said exactly the same thing, that there's a lack of those blogs, you know, and someone needs to write them, i.e. you.
The document everything you're doing blog post.
I would love to, you know, not that I think that I'm an expert, but that is the subject matter in a domain that I want to really own for myself, not to take credit or to stake a claim in it, but to own and get more knowledge on, because I've experienced the pain of Tableau server on Linux. There's just nothing there. It's just, there's nothing there.
It's new, so.
It's new, but then you hear that, you know, 25% of all new installs are on the cloud or on Linux. It's like, this is what people are doing. I've had conversations with clients that are like, we don't like Windows. Like, okay, you don't like Windows, so we've got to figure this out. And there just isn't a depth of content. The same thing can be said about prep as well, right? And extensions, right? Those are areas where, you know, I guess I would say this, like if you're pressed for time and you want to contribute and you want to feel like you're actually contributing, do it on the subject areas that you're like, I looked for something and there was nothing there. That's usually why I kind of write stuff down. I do like what you're saying though, Sarah, like to fend off the questions, like here's my blog post to defend or to describe what it was that I did.
Yeah. But no, you're right. And I think we're seeing more stuff on prep, you know, prep's relatively easy to pick up. And as a result of that, people are blogging about it. And, you know, Joshua Milligan has done a lot of stuff, hasn't he? And in terms of like videos and blogs and things on prep.
Definitely need for it too.
You've got Lindsay as well, that's doing all the set actions. Yeah.
Oh yes, she's definitely.
He's got that covered.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. You could just go to hername.com, right? Like that's it. Just go to.
She's been so smart about it too. If you go on her Tableau Public, you can download one workbook and you have everything in one workbook.
I downloaded it. It's amazing.
It's just constant examples loading in as well. And I know that there's also another website that's doing this with set actions, and it's also
it's the one with Craig Bloodworth and Bethany Lyons. Yes, exactly the same thing. So Bethany was, because obviously she did the TC talk and she's incredible with set actions, but then Lindsay came along and she's just gone crazy
every day, just a whole new thing where you're like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Sarah, one of the things that Luke and I often debate is like, do you need to be very vocal? And I think this is specific to women in the community. Do you have to be someone very vocal about what it is you're doing to be seen? Is that sort of a requirement for engaging in the community? And I guess further to that point, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on if that's hindering us or if you think that that's preventing us from seeing other people who just aren't, like I'm a very shouty person, right? Like I like to be heard. If that's preventing us from finding and growing, expanding, you know, the way we approach things.
I think you probably do to some extent. I mean, with this community, everyone is fighting for attention, and there's so many people, right? And if you go on Twitter, it's all different people just saying, hey, look at this, I did, look at this. And I think if you're not really shouting about what you're doing and just, you know, dropping visualizations on Tableau Public quietly, then nobody will see them. And I see this every week with Tableau Follow Friday. So I try and nominate people every week. I try in particular to nominate women. And sometimes it's really, really, really hard to find somebody that hasn't been nominated before, that isn't active in Makeover Monday, for instance, that's just doing other stuff, you know, and stuff that's not getting seen on Twitter. And it's near impossible to find those people. There's a good, it's on Tableau Public, it's a user profile, I think it's called Women in Data or something, that Jade Levan put together from the Tableau Public team, which is just a list of women. So there's no vizzes on there. She follows a load of women. And that's quite a nice way of finding people that you may not necessarily have come across before, but it's really hard. And I think if you don't go and social media and shout about what you're doing, you essentially won't get noticed because there's so many other people that will get noticed before you.
And I just want to clarify, Ann and I are not debating whether or not you should be talking or not. Our debate is more like, we see this in the community. Do you think that how then the perception is from the outside? Like we're just like trying to figure out the influence that right, because there's like, oh, then what's the perception of women in the community if in general like that. I'm trying to form my full idea of what we've talked about.
I think kind of what we've talked about is, you know, do you have to shout to be heard? Which I think to some degree you don't have to shout, but Sarah, you kind of said it well. There has to be some focus in what it is you're trying to communicate, right? Like if you're just randomly doing things scattered, it doesn't matter what it is, it's not going to come across as anything that has any sort of like thought process behind it. And it's going to be very difficult for someone to, you know, recognize what you're most passionate about, right? Like you can only be good at 2 to 3 things. So what are the 2 to 3 things that you're really good at or you really, really care about? I think some of the conversations that Luke and I have had, and I've kind of said this from an observational perspective, is like some of the most prominent women are very vocal, like almost more vocal than I think men in the same space are even.
It's almost like,
do you think that's because we feel the need to overcompensate?
That's what I was about to say.
I think back to my journey. So I attended a few Tableau conferences in London. I won a ticket with the Information Lab to go to Austin. So when I was attending that conference, I didn't know anyone. Like the Information Lab kind of took me under their wing, which was amazing. And I was with like loads of the community the entire time. It was an incredible experience. But before I left there, I didn't know anyone, you know, and it was only through going to that conference that I got to meet all these amazing people in the community and then build those connections. And on the back of that conference, I had conversations with the people running London Tug. They were looking for some help. I just said, hey, you know, I'll help you. Not expecting them to say yes, because at that point, I think I'd been to one user group, you know. I wasn't actively involved, you know, and they were like, yeah, okay.
Be careful what you volunteer yourself for.
Yeah, and then
you end up running an entire thing that takes up an entire year plus of your life.
And then things just started to go a little bit crazy. But I think you do have to really, you have to say yes to things. You have to put yourself out there and do more if you want to get noticed.
Yeah, so Luke, I would say it's probably a combination. I think you probably have to shout louder to be seen, but then it kind of can turn into overcompensating or really posturing about what it is. You know, I was thinking about this as Sarah was talking, like so one of my more popular viz is a sports viz about Super Bowl. So what's funny is I made that viz like 2 years ago and no one saw it. And then I redid it, like I updated the data and it became like this hugely, you know, much more popular than it was the first time around. And I did nothing different. And it was only by virtue of how much more I was seen that it became something that people actually, you know, cared about or whatever. So I think that that's where, you know, I don't like that. I wish it weren't like that.
Yeah, I can relate. Just like in general, what you've said is that as I matured in the community and then I was recognized for my current standing, then my things became, I took something that I did the exact same. I didn't even change a thing in it other than I updated the data. And the first time I posted it, I think I got like maybe like 40 views, period. And then I just like a year later, because it's new data and it's sports data, just reposted it and it went like crazy and it has like 50,000 views on it or something. And there's lots of conversation around it. People blogged about it, and it's just like I didn't do anything different. I took the exact same thing, and my network was like 50 people more, and now it's just like, so it's very interesting. Like there's definitely in the chicken and egg situation of, do you produce content or do you get like people to follow you? Definitely seems like you should just get people to follow you in order to like
as bad as that
the
is.
masses.
No, it's true though. Like, I mean, Yeah, Luke, I'm like going back to that book that we talked about before, like the creative curve. Like the more successful people really garner that following, and people like looking at them before they get to that point of like the better. Like if you're only in a box just producing stuff and you're not sharing it, or you've got this very limited perspective into the world, you're not penetrating, you're not changing anything. Like, but I think the important thing to take away from this is like, if that is you, like if that is you, that doesn't mean you're not good enough or worthy of being on the platform in the playing field. If anything, it means we need you more, right? Like that's the part that I hope that we can make sure that we're being conscious of as we do this. Like Follow Friday is a really great example of there's people that are doing really great things. They've always been doing great things. You just don't know who they are. And it needs to be directly stated that they were always awesome, right? We were just stupid. We just didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we didn't know.
We were stupid.
It's true. Like, is that not like the case? Like I endeavor to feel stupid every day because that means I'm at least learning and growing and figuring out more of that, what I don't know that I don't know, bubble that exists within all of us. Right.
It fascinates me that there's this whole group of people out there that are doing amazing things that we just don't know anything about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But how do we find them? That's the thing.
Always $1 million question.
Well, we try.
We don't know exist.
We will find them.
Find us too. Yeah. Get on the whatever. It's got to be a mutual thing. Like you can't get a girlfriend if you don't go on a dating website, right? Like there's some give and take to the situation there.
But I mean, there's people that aren't comfortable being on social media. Some people hate Twitter, and I can see why, you know? So, I mean, I guess you could ask the question, do you need to be on social media to get noticed? Or can you just have this incredible Tableau public profile and do that on its own? And
the answer is I mean,
because you mentioned a blog before, Luke, like you need a blog. Like, is it essential you have a blog to get noticed, or can you get noticed on your Tableau public profile alone? You know,
it's all about the connections you make, unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, you have to build a network, and that is going to be the number one way to spread the work that you're doing. It's all in the network, and for better or worse, you can there despite what you may read about people in the past, like history, saying like, oh, there was this guy, because it's often a guy who was like isolated and did his own thing, and he was a genius. He just was a prodigy. Like this, it doesn't exist in real life. Right. It's just a mythology made up, and then it required building a network or having someone who's helping build your network.
I think we got to stop feeling guilty that the conversation lies on Twitter. That's just what we've used to have a conversation. Like, there's a lot of people that think it's kind of a negative thing, like, but there's a lot of positives to it. I mean, it's a great place to curate things. Like if that's where the influential, the thought leaders are from your perspective, what is the harm in that? And I think the reverse of that is if someone doesn't want to use that as a medium for whatever reason, to recognize that is potentially going to be a hindrance or a barrier. Like it's not a joke to say that, most, and it's not just Tableau people, right? Like, you think about Tapestry, right? So you have, Mona come on. She has a very prominent Instagram feed where she is doing these visualizations. She's got a very prominent Twitter feed. You think about Elijah Meeks from Netflix, same thing, right? His presence is in Twitter. So it's not just us. It's just the best. It's where we've decided to group together. If it were Reddit, then I would if r/data is beautiful became the number one source in the future to get new information, I'd move over to Reddit. Right now it's Twitter.
Yeah. And I think some people perceive Twitter as when you're scrolling through a Twitter feed, that's just wasting time, but for me it's not, because I follow people with intention, the people that are posting good content, and very often I'll see a blog post and I'll bookmark it, and then at some point in the future I'll come back to it for work and utilize that thing that they blogged about, and that's really my source of inspiration, is a lot of the stuff I see on Twitter.
Just nailing all the key things. The other key piece, not as just the network, but is consumption. And you have to consume to know what is popular and what people want to see, and how you can build around that. Because obviously there is a component of staying towards the norm and not going too far out of bounds in your design so that it becomes like a bit taboo, a little past the curve, right? And,
That's a good hashtag, taboo tableau. Luke, why don't you take that on?
yeah.
New year venture.
You don't want to go too bespoke. You want bespoke, but you don't want to go like confusing people on what you're doing and going too far outside of the box. You want to go outside of the box just a little bit, and then you want to do it a couple of times so then it becomes part of the box.
Yeah.
But if you go way too far out, and then it's just like,
this sounds like how you're trying to take someone from, they have like a crosstab and you're like, here's a highlight table, and then here's a bar chart, and then here's, you know, line chart, and here's spark lights. It's the same.
by the way, here's a cloud plot. You know, you can do this cloud plot. Why don't you do a cloud plot?
Why would you want to do that, right?
More cloud plots in the future. Make them commonplace.
Just trademark it, Luke. Just go out on a limb and TM it now. So here's a fun random fact that I learned recently from a lawyer, that you can common law, at least here in the United States, Sarah, I have no idea how this works worldwide.
Okay.
At least common law in the United States, if you put TM next to whatever it is, even if it's not trademark, that is the common law version of trademark. So feel free to do that if you don't want to pay to have something trademark. You can common law TM stuff. So Luke, go common law TM desolation. No, he's gonna Google it. No, like, you believe me? Like, I got this advice from a lawyer. Yeah. I had no idea, but you're just supposed to do that. So go do that. Go do that with your.
Everything is a shade of gray in the legal sense. So.
Well, Sarah, one of the things that you talked about, like, it's kind of funny when you were, you know, mentioning our Dear Data project that we're going to be doing. What I was thinking you were going to say was actually something that you announced during Fringe Festival. So I don't want to leave this conversation today without at least touching on it. So can you, if you're comfortable, can you share with us what that initiative is?
Yeah, sure. So I had this crazy idea, like I often do, about trying to get people more involved in IronViz and getting people more comfortable about entering IronViz. And for me, the barrier to me entering before was not about being a woman or anything like that. It was more around finding data and finding clean data, or being able to clean data, being able to scrape data and actually find data that fits the subject and then go away and visualize it. And that I tried multiple times and multiple feeders and didn't get anywhere because I couldn't get the data. I found data that couldn't extract it, and so I just gave up, you know. And I don't want anyone to experience that. And I think, well, I perceive that to be a barrier. I mean, it might not be. Maybe everyone is really savvy with web scraping and Alteryx and whatever else, but I don't believe they actually are. So I had this idea around maybe sharing blog posts and tutorials around how to accomplish that, and also around giving people a platform to practice an IronViz style feeder, and trying to meet those criteria, so analysis, design, and storytelling, without it actually being a feeder, because obviously you only get 3 chances to do a feeder a year, or maybe more if you're in Europe, but that's not many, you know, and that's only for a small portion of the year. So we've got all this other part of the year where we're not doing anything around IronViz. So I think after conference, there's a big hype around IronViz, but it all dies down very quickly because it's over and it's done. So I had this idea about almost mimicking a feeder, and then giving people feedback around those criteria, which would give people an opportunity to, one, build more elaborate visualizations, but also they'd have to be comfortable with sourcing their own data and you know, and trying to meet those criteria. So I ran it past a few people. I kind of said to a few people, like, is this just crazy and stupid, or is this, what did you think this actually would be popular? And people seemed to like the idea of it. So I thought, in terms of giving feedback, I wasn't quite sure around, you know, what the best medium to do that would be, because essentially you want it written down, but that could take forever. I mean, you could be setting up yourself to fail. I don't know how many people are going to enter or anything. So then I spoke to Eva, and I had, you know, obviously I was thinking about Eva and Andy. They do the like the Bright Talk thing on the video where they just go through Viz's for the Make of a Monday Viz review very quickly. And I thought about doing something similar to that. So one video, bringing up a Viz, reviewing it, next one. And I think that will probably be the way that I go. And then, but rather than it just being me, I wanted to incorporate people from the community and people that have a tie to Iron Viz in some way. So I spoke to Timothy and asked him if he'd be up for it. I had various conversations with other people that have either been in Iron Viz or, you know, been involved, like Curtis, people like that. And they're all very keen. So I thought Timothy kindly offered to help me with January. So yeah, so I announced it today. I haven't set up anything yet. I'm going to put it on data.world, and I'm just trying to work out the logistics of it. But from what I've seen on Twitter today, everyone seems super keen, like more keen than I expected. But there's obviously a demand there for this kind of thing.
More Iron Viz is what I think is like. I appreciate it for sure. There's definitely a need for it, but it's just like there's nothing that stresses me out more during the year than the 3 months of feeders.
Well, this one is like, I'm trying to stress to people, like, this will not get you anywhere. This isn't going to give you a golden ticket or anything like that. Like, I don't want people to think that, oh, I'm working with Tableau, because I'm not. I ran it past, like, I said to Johnny Walker, like, is this okay? Like, can I do this thing? I'm not going to, like, sabotage your brand. It's not going to be called Iron Viz. We call something else. And funny enough, me and Anne had a long conversation around trying to come up with a name. And we just went round and round in circles. And it was, I mentioned it to Caesar, and Caesar actually just came back with like Iron Quest, like straight away. I'm like, you are amazing. That is just brilliant. That fits really well. So that's where the name came from. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens with it. And I do hope that other people get involved. So people like you, Luke, sorry to put more work on your shoulders, but I do
I'll find
hope
a way once in a while, I'm sure.
Yeah, and in reality, this isn't going to run for very long. We're only really looking at January and February, because come March, it's likely that the feeder for Europe will come about, and so I don't want this to run alongside any other official feeder. So January, February, then we'll be done, and then we'll see what happens then, because then it will be full-on feeders all right through to TC. But it'll be interesting to see what comes of it, how popular it is, if people actually use it and then enter Iron Viz on the back of this as well.
I like this idea a lot, because one of the things I think would be really cool to see, I hope anyway, is that you're kind of promoting this idea of like having feedback out in the open. Like a lot of the feedback that I get is kind of in private, or I've been very limited in the feedback that I get to some degree. So I think that this will be really cool to see if you go the video path, which I know, you know, TBD, but I like that idea to help get that out more. And I mean, I had the opportunity to sit with Andy and do one of the Makeover Monday Viz reviews, and you learn so much by giving feedback and having people just like interact with you live about it. I've had people who like, thank you so much for giving me feedback. I'm like, I just tore your Viz apart because I didn't like the grid lines. And they're like, no, but it's so valuable. And
I think we did one around the same time. So I teamed up with Eva like the week before, because I think Andy was on holiday or something. And we were filling in for Andy and Eva. But yeah, it's the same. People were like messaging me back like after the event saying, is this okay now? Like, thank you for pointing out that thing that I did wrong, or, you know.
And it's just like, I think it's fantastic. Like, I think you even learned, I don't know about you, but like Andy was asking me like, why do you think that? Right. And like, so you're like, I don't know, why do I, you know, how do I justify the feedback that I'm giving? And seeing it just go kind of like live is really cool. And I think it's probably a better medium and vehicle than just like, here's an email of everything I hated about what you did. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I know Eva, before, I think Eva's thinking around the reason why they set that up was that she wanted to show their natural reaction and their initial reaction to seeing visits for the first time. So I think at the time they were trying not to look at anything, and then it'll be on the review. Okay, Andy, here you go. What do you think of this? And get his initial reaction rather than something where he had time to process it. And which is interesting, because when you watch it back, sometimes it takes a while for them to figure out like what a viz is all about, and then that goes back to the point, is that viz really well designed, or, you know. So yeah, this should be interesting, and I'll be curious to see what impact it has on the participation stats, because if you look back at this year, I think there was about 198 entries across the 3 feeders, and I think it worked out around 60 or 70 per feeder. I think we can do better than that. You know, if you look at all the people that are in the community that are actively posting visualizations, there's way more than 60. And then if this helps with diversity as well, then great, you know.
I told you already, I get so much anxiety over the amount of, I didn't even spend that much time doing it this year, but I still, it's just like the thought of it looming in the future, that I guess you just got to get over the fact that I don't have to do it, but it's like,
You do have to do it.
You have to do it. Like, first of all, you have to do it, but like, it's the social pressure, right? Like, you just can't let that get to you. I mean, we've heard people say like, I don't want to do it. Like, I've heard, very serious people like, I don't want to do it because it's too much of like, people are going to be judging who, what I'm capable of building, right? Like, don't do that for you. Like, I loved this year's feeders because I felt that I got 3 different experiences and 3 different visualizations, whatever products out of it that I would not have had otherwise. And they were growth opportunities for me. And that's really, I think, what we need to continue to promote as it relates to Iron Viz. Like, yes, you can go get on the stage, whatever, but no matter what, like, screw it all. It's a great way to get seen, right? Like, you're going to be on this blog post, right? You're going to have your work shown.
Yeah. And that's exactly what my talk was today on at TFF, was around the reasons why you should enter. And I think people, and I'll include myself in this, think, oh well, what if I win? What if I end up on stage? I don't want to be on stage, therefore I won't enter. But the chances of you winning, no offense to anyone, are very, very, very slim.
they're like 1 in 60 or 1 in 70.
Exactly.
Sarah,
and it may be even more than that
you.
now if with more people enter, so the chances of it happening are very, very slim. And if it does, then so what? It's an amazing opportunity. Everyone's there to support you. You'll get a Subiza. Tableau are really, really supportive, and they don't want to see you fail. They don't want to see you go up there and not complete your visualization. And I don't know if that's ever happened, but not that I'm aware of. Everyone has done something. And I mean, I struggle to do a make of a Monday in an hour, but I still managed to do my Iron Viz in 20 minutes somehow. I think it's not. You can't watch Iron Viz and think that's real life, because it's not real life. They've practiced a lot to build those visualizations, and until they can almost do it blind.
Yeah, it's the edited show, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's not reality.
Yeah.
So who's shooting for the coveted Triple Crown next year?
What's the Triple Crown?
The Zen Master, Ambassador, Iron Viz Champion combo. I feel like the 2 people here might be trying to shoot for that next year, and that's
I think all 3 of us are trying to shoot. I think there's more than who you're saying right now. I think that there's a combination of people that have, and to be clear, there are people that have won Iron Viz that aren't yet Zen Masters.
Yeah, I do want to just say that I enjoy having the ambassador title, and there's some people that are both an ambassador and a Zen Master, and I would love to see. I'd love to just. You want to
strip me of a title?
What's that?
You want to strip me of a title?
Yeah, I just like. And I also almost think like Zen Masters and ambassadors should be ineligible from competing in Iron Viz, so that we can highlight new talent.
I don't think that would go down well, Luke. Somehow.
This is where I make something up on the fly and just see how Anne reacts.
So,
but, I mean, this year there's no Zen Masters on stage.
Yeah,
last
exactly.
Year, there was one, Joshua.
Last year, yeah.
And the year before that there was Robert Rouse was a Zen Master, yeah. But it's not like you've got 3 Zen Masters up there. It never happened.
Yeah. I just, anyway, I just think of how you diversify your talent pool is that you say, all right, we already know that you're really good, and you are, you're already going to be featured. So and you're already going to be busy as a result. And we want to feature other people.
But if you look at the Zen Masters, a lot of them don't participate in Iron Viz.
Oh, I know. And a lot of that's because they have a lot of other things that they're doing anyway to begin with.
Busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll say, kind of to your point, because I don't think you're wrong, right? I think about, how do we get more people to be seen? One of the things that I did, and I kind of recommend it to anybody, like the the things I did at TC were not solo projects. They were with people that weren't Zen masters, right? Or weren't even necessarily ambassadors, right? Like when Lorna and I decided to do the speed tipping, she wasn't an ambassador. She was just a person. She was a scorekeeper who got promoted to rightfully, yeah, and she was
we're both scorekeepers.
Exactly, right? Like she was in the role of scorekeeper for whatever reason, right? And she
don't knock the scorekeeper.
No, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying she was scorekeeper, and it was like, let's do this together. She's probably the only reason why I even got to be a part of it was because of her tie to it. But I very intentionally wanted my conference experience to be partnering with people. Like same thing with you, Luke. Like Workout Wednesday was something that I told you, like, I want you, I think you should run with this. This would be fantastic. I'm here to support or whatever. But I'm not someone who's like, I want to be the Zen lone on the stage talking about how cool my shit is. Because I don't think any of my shit's really cool. And I think that there's a better opportunity to say, like, look at this awesome person standing next to me, right? Look at them. And then that's one thing I think we could all be doing more better. But what we're doing is more better is making sure that we're standing next to people that are less visible and deserve to be visible. Having these conversations about those people is really helpful. If there were one change I would make as it relates to the Zen Master program and how it unfolds at TC would be every Zen Master session is required to be collaborative. There needs to be two people there and they can't both be Zens from the same organization. You need to diversify.
And can I also add, I absolutely agree.
I agree with that.
Boom, punctuated, done. Back to my whole provocative statement is that we talk about people, what are the barriers to entry with doing Iron Viz? And the answer to part of that is, well, I know I'm not going to win, so why would I compete? Because I know that you have Zen Masters, you have these ambassadors, people who are already known to be really good in Tableau. Why would I go up against them when I feel my skills are not on par with where they're at?
Yeah.
Great.
So
Boom.
you're gonna miss 100%
Take them out.
of the shots you don't take, or you'd lose, right? So like, the thing is, Luke, that it's an excuse.
And you see that, Luke, as well with Make of a Monday. People say, what's the point? Why am I going to compete when everyone else is doing all this amazing stuff and mine's nowhere near as good? And it is an excuse. It's just a cop-out.
It's an excuse, but I mean, it's a legitimate barrier that exists for people to get into it. So you have to weigh the fact that you have something that you can perceive as an excuse or is an actual barrier to getting involved.
Which is why I've set up Iron Quest.
There you go. Exactly. Which is why people, like literally, people diligently have these conversations of how can we move past this to do more, to have more people be a part of the conversation, to X, Y, Z, right? We're all actively doing those things, but I don't want to understate that someone has to want to do something for them to truly do it. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine. And I also think it's quite important that they be real about not wanting to do something, so it doesn't detract from the good work that's going on. A lot of times you see that there's so much naysaying about something that it ruins the thread of amazingness that is a lot of these things. Like particularly, I mean, Iron Viz is a fantastic example of, there's a lot of detraction and noise around the scoring process, who's up there, how difficult it is. It takes up so much time. I have, a family, whatever. And honestly, that removes like the magic that it is at the end of the day, and how much I personally gain from it, how much Sarah gained from it, how much I know you gain from it, Luke, despite it being uncomfortable and painful in the process.
Yeah. And also what you don't want is people, like you said, Anne, you want people to participate because they want to participate, not because they feel they should. And it's so obvious, and especially with things like Make of a Monday, if people are doing it as a tick box exercise, they're doing it because they want to do all 52, and just because, they're not doing it because they want to improve their skills or anything. So every week they just put something out like that's semi-par. They're capable of more, but they just want to be there to be seen to be doing something. You don't see it so much with Iron Viz, so I think there's more of a commitment there, but you see it with Make of a Monday.
This is where I'm overly shouty, so I apologize for being overly shouty, but I'd really like to be, if nothing else, I feel like for whatever twisted reason, I have some sort of obligation to speak truth, at least from my perspective on these things. And it comes from my own experience and how I was maybe that person that was like, I'm not good enough several years ago, and recognizing that it's a journey, and you have to put an effort to get to those levels, and you have to make it a priority, right? Like anything else in life, you have to prioritize.
Yeah, you do. And you have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. Like the only reason I started participating in Make of a Monday all that time ago is because I wasn't good enough, and it's because I wanted to improve and be able to go back to work and do more complex things at work. And it was only through doing Make of a Monday that I did that,
I'm going to ask a very revealing question, which is, how do you go about when you're creating something? What's your design process? Take me through you developing.
It depends what it is. For which one?
For any of them, like what's generally your process that you follow to build something out?
So when I'm building anything out in Tableau, I'll build multiple different throwaway like visuals, like loads of worksheets, just trying to find insight. Sometimes I'll have something in mind before I even explore the data set. It depends. So with my InVis feeder, I already kind of knew what I wanted it to look like, and I went down that route and made it look like that. And things evolve along the way and things change, but most of the time I will play with it at first and then have a think around what would work or won't work. And maybe sometimes I draw it out, not every time, but sometimes I will. But yeah, it depends really.
Do you have any, so someone asked me this question. I was like, there's like 3 things I always do. It's like turn off grid lines, capitalize everything.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those like design crutches or things that you do for yourself to help you get started on crafting towards that like final visualization?
So I usually start with one chart, for instance, and I'll format that chart and I'll make that chart look how I want it to look. So taking the grid lines away is a must, taking the borders away. I've started capitalizing the axes like names. I think that's your influence and from Workout Wednesday, but I just like the way it looks. And I'll play with color with that just one chart. And then once I'm happy with that, I might apply that to all and then build it out. And I spend a lot of time fiddling around with things on the dashboard just to make it look right. And that part would take longer than actually building out the charts.
Are you paying attention to like individual pixels as you're doing this?
Yeah, totally.
I know that some people are just like, well, like 1 pixel, 5 pixel difference, does it really matter? And
it
tells the bigger story.
You can tell.
Yeah. So the one I did this week on Christmas movies. So I read your blog post, Luke, and you mentioned me doing storytelling with data challenge, and I hadn't done it. And I met Cole last month. She came to the London Tug, and I felt really bad. And it was when you posted that blog, it was the final day to submit something. I'm like, I've got to do it. I need to find something. So I just like sat down for like 4 hours and did that. From sourcing the data to actually doing the biz.
I'm glad I could suddenly.
That was your inspiration. And it turned out all right. So with that, I had something in mind beforehand, and it actually went in my favor. It doesn't always work that way.
All right, guys, we are running low on time because we're just running low on time. In general, we've been talking too long. So is there anything, look at Luke's face, it's so serious. Sarah, I always ask this of the guests. So is there anything else that you want us to touch on or talk about during this conversation that we have not yet brought up?
I think I'll be interested to hear, like Luke in particular, what are your plans for 2019? I know you're not setting resolutions, but
yeah, I'm not setting resolutions, and part that allows me to be a little more fluid with what I plan on doing. Workout Wednesday continuing, I know that for sure. We've got a team of 5, and we've done a lot of planning and trying to expand our community in that area and increasing engagement. I think you'll see me doing a lot of that again, but I also want to get back to doing like maybe 2 or 3 non-Iron Viz visualizations that are what I'm going to classify into the slow Viz movement, where it's a little more customized and really focused on the quality output to it.
Yeah.
And I just like, it's hard to find time right now to prioritize this because, you know, I got a family at home now with a young child, and I want to be involved as much as possible in doing the work that I'm doing. Running a very small business takes up a lot of time. So.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Anne, obviously, apart from Dear Data.
Yeah, apart from
and Workout Wednesday.
Yes, apart from those. So, you know, I'm roping Luke in on this, but this podcast is something that I want to continue to do.
There's also this podcast, which it's just in the DNA now.
It won't stop. Like, I've just gotten more aggressive with like, Luke, you know, we need to schedule you XYZ. So that's kind of top of mind. You know, I am kind of in a similar position as Luke is in terms of like growing my business and turning it into something larger. So I'm going to be focusing more on that this year. I think probably the past few years have been a lot of like proving myself and doing that. And what I am more focused on now is giving back. I feel like I've always given back, but trying to give back as much as possible. But one thing that will never go away from just who I am as a person, because this is just who I am, is like, I want to participate in all the things. So like, as foolish as it is to have New Year's resolutions, participating in Iron Viz is on my New Year's resolution. Participating in Iron Quest with you is on my my list. Obviously, Workout Wednesday is on my list of things. And you know, I think that when you find something that you enjoy doing, not only in your free time, but you can make a living off of it, it behooves you to do as much as possible around it. So that's kind of where my mind is taking me. But I do think you're right to some degree, Luke. I think one of my struggles has always been creating kind of original content on Tableau Public. Like, it's very easy for me to make a Workout Wednesday or to make a Makeover Monday to some degree. The Iron Viz things are much more challenging. I'd like to see myself making more unique content. And this is not flushed out at all, but one of the ideas I have for 2019 is coming up with like a new website called like ArizonaCharts.com, where I make it something very specific about where I live and finding small data about where I live to help grow my own skills, to grow data storytelling and make it more specific. That only is a result of that third Iron Viz feeder where I focus completely on Arizona. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's something I'm thinking about.
I really love the style of like Georgia Loopy and the kind of things she does with the data postcards, and I've got something in the works around that. I just need to find the time to finish it off, but it's a little bit different. I like a lot of the stuff that Neil Richards has been trying, and you know, there's a lot of crossover with what he's been doing, which is great. And I think we need to see more of that. That's
part of the slow Tableau Viz movement, which is how creating things that cross over. And I almost see like being recognized for your work in the broader visualization community is far more important to establishing the Tableau community as part of it. And that is going to require and I'm sure it's just like how your Iron Viz winning design came out of it. You're like, oh, I did it so quick, but like, it's gonna have to be something that is thoughtful, and then maybe it's gonna be something that random that spurs from it. But.
So that one was, the design for that was actually inspired by something I saw on Pinterest, and it just kind of went from there. It wasn't a data viz. It was just a poster.
That's all. Like, I've been where I've spent my time the second half of this year is just doing more research and expanding my knowledge to create maybe something good eventually.
Georgia Loopy did a viz recently on it was to do with podcasts. I don't know if you saw it, like posters around podcasts and how long these podcasts have been running, their duration and stuff. So I've done something very similar to that. We're not with podcasts. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's something like that, and I've tried to replicate that in Tableau. So when I get a chance, I'll finish it off and publish it. But it's the first time I've attempted something, you know, a little bit different. And it was fun. So I want to do more of that.
Custom data sets like the two of you are doing for Dear Data always inspire far more novel and more approachable visualizations.
All right. Well, yes, we've got to wrap up. Sarah, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time chatting with us.
It's been amazing.
It's been awesome. Yeah, thank you for being our first female guest. It's a huge thing. We're so excited to have you. Thank you for your candidness, your honesty, and for humoring us at times.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really fun. And keep these up next year as well. Yeah.
Hear that, Luke? It's a requirement. It's been requested.
More
so much
next
else.
year. But in the meantime, good night, world.
Oh, God.
That's why you've got this book, right?
Yeah. I love that we just both hold the book up at the same time. Oh, there you go. Yeah, put us to shame, whatever. Yeah, I've got a mirror on my desk to look at myself. Are you going to add on any interesting, Luke, practice this. Are you going to add on any weird superlatives? Because to when you introduce her, like, you're going to say she's excellent.
World-renowned Tableau expert.
Don't just say call her rock star. Like, I'll kill you. You call her.